Welcome to the 24K Life Podcast. It is 2024 February, and we are ready to rock and roll. We are all set to have an amazing year, to bring you amazing guests, and to help you have insights and tools to grow and master your personal life. Hey, I'm Derick Gant. I am the host of the 24K Life Podcast, and the 24K Life is all about self-mastery. 24 karat gold is the highest standard from the beginning of time. And we want you to know that it's not about being rich. It's not about you acquiring gold. It's about you becoming gold. It is how can you elevate your personal life, the purpose that you have, the purpose that you serve, the people that you connect with at your highest level so that you can continuously deliver what gifts you have been given. Today, we are bringing Leigh Brandon, the $6 million skin man, who is going to help all of us feel better, look better, and be better. If you know anything about anything, you want to make sure you start your journey with what you can control, and what you can control is yourself. Now, Leigh, hey, Leigh.
Hey, Derick, how you doing?
I'm amazing, brother. I am amazing. I know that you said you're having a little bit of inclement weather, but we are bringing the heat today. So I hope you're ready to rock and roll, man. So let me tell everybody a little bit about you, bro. You are a health and fitness expert. And since 2010, you've been a member of the CHEK Institute, which is a teaching facility in Europe. You travel Europe, Australia, and North America as a content creator. You have 4 books out. Is that accurate?
5.
Oh, see, you got to update your profile, bro. You got 5 books out. And the reason why I absolutely unequivocally wanted to talk to you is because of your personal experience that you had with your skin. And, our face is the first thing that most people are addressed when we meet someone, when we see someone. And why don't you just tell us about your skin issues back in the day and how you got to the point to where you wanted to heal the world of acne?
Sure. The first thing I just need to correct you. The CHEK Institute is actually based in San Diego in California.
No way.
Yeah.
All right. I apologize, but it's global.
Oh, yeah.
That part is right, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So my own story goes back to when I was 13 years old, and, we all hit puberty around that sort of age, and, my skin started to break out, and didn't really concern me a great deal at first because, that's what happens to teenagers, right? That's what everyone kind of thinks. But it started to get worse and worse, and it started to become a real problem. And you know what it's like when you're that kind of age, when you're at school. Mm-hmm. If you're different in any way from anyone else, you're going to get it, right? You're going to get the teasing and everything else. Everything else, and everything else that comes with it. So it got to a point where, my mother said, right, okay, I'll take you to the doctor and the doctor will help you. So, okay. So I went to the doctor and he said, yeah, I can see, your acne is not very good. And he gave me a cream to use, and he gave me a cleanser to use. And I thought, great, problem solved. I can get on with the rest of my life. So I started using the cream and the cleanser, and didn't really seem to make much of a difference. I noticed my skin would go quite kind of red, and sometimes it'd be really dry, sometimes it'd be really oily. And in fact, it just continued to get worse. So this happened for a few months, and a friend of mine who was in my class at school, he started getting acne a few months before me, and he went through the same process. But after a while, his skin started getting better. And I was like, oh, wow, what are you doing? He says, well, I went back to the doctor and he's put me on an antibiotic. So I thought, oh, okay, there's the answer. So my mother took me back to the doctor and we explained the situation. And of course, the doctor was more than happy to put me on an antibiotic. So I started taking the antibiotic, and yeah, my skin started getting better. And you think, great, this is it. And that lasted for about 6 weeks, if I remember right. And then the acne came back, and it came back a lot worse.
Oh.
And I kept going back to the doctor, and he was almost shrugging his shoulders as if to say, well, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But his general response tended to be, well, that antibiotic didn't work. Let me give you another one. And that was the story for the next 18 years, really, in terms of my interaction with my doctor. That was the only solutions that he had.
Right.
Now, in terms of the main issue, I think, for most people, and it was certainly my experience, it's not even so much, yes, you look horrible. It doesn't feel nice. They can be painful. It can be itchy. But it's what it does to your mental health, right? It's really devastating to your self-esteem and to your confidence. So I kind of survived through school. I got through that bit. But then you start work. You go to work and you're in an adult environment. But if you've got acne in an adult environment, people tend not to take you seriously because they can't see past the acne. And most people, they think acne, oh, teenager, right? So quite often I'd be going for job interviews or job promotions. And many times I knew I was the best person for the job. Without being arrogant, I just knew I was the best person.
Right.
And I wasn't getting the promotions. I wasn't getting these jobs. And the worst thing is, skin conditions get worse when you're stressed. So if you've got a job interview coming up, you start stressing in case your skin breaks out really badly on the day of the interview. Well, what does that do? That actually makes the acne worse on the day. And that was always my experience. I also always had really bad days on days where I had job interviews. The other really challenging situation is in relationships, right? You can't look in the mirror and say, I look great today. Right. If your face is covered in acne, even if your partner can see through that, you don't feel that yourself. Right. So, looking back to my 20s, I don't know, it may have cost me a number of relationships. Relationships come and go anyway, right? But they all did tend to end around the time where my skin also happened to be really bad. So maybe it was coincidence, maybe it wasn't, but let's just say it makes things challenging. So going through my 20s, I kept thinking, surely this isn't going to keep going, last forever. When's this thing going to solve itself? And it wasn't until I was in my early 30s, and again, the acne was still bad. And the only thing that actually helped me was sunshine. And during the winter, I would go and have a sunbed. That would actually help my skin.
Really?
Yeah, they were the only things that really made any kind of difference. So
it was something about the vitamin D, you think?
Possibly.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting, so I started working in the realm of health and fitness when I was 27. And I was in my early 30s. I was at a conference at one of the top universities in England. And there's this guy speaking called Paul Czech. And I'd been I've been reading a lot of his articles in magazines back in the day. Remember, we used to have magazines back in the day.
Yeah, right? I was going to say you weren't Google searching him.
No, absolutely not. So anyway, this guy was doing a lecture called "Flatten Your Abs Forever," and it was a lecture hall of about 300 capacity, and it was standing room only. Right, this room was packed. And of course, everyone's thinking, oh, this guy's going to start talking about, how to do crunches and, maybe hanging leg raises and all this funky stuff. But he starts talking about nutrition, and he starts talking about how food affects your hormones. And he was saying how food sensitivities can affect your skin and how hormones can affect your skin. And all these light bulbs are going off in my head, because in all the time I was with my doctor, many a time he was asked, either by me or my mother, has diet got anything to do with acne? Is there anything that I'm eating that's causing my acne? And every time the doctor said, no, acne has got absolutely nothing to do with diet. Right. So there's this guy from San Diego, California, right? 5'8" muscle man, bald head. And he's saying all these things. And I'm thinking, wow, I've got actually more things to investigate. There's more things I can do here. So shortly after this conference,
did he in the conference, did he say anything about acne or just skin issues?
No, he did mention acne. Yeah. So,
okay, so you didn't have to work for it. It was like right there. Like this might be part of your issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that was the one skin condition he did actually name. But I mean, I know from my own experience, it's more than acne that is linked to diet. But so I went back from that conference. I went to see this guy. He did food sensitivity tests on me. He ran a whole load of tests on me. And he said, the first things first, you've got to stop using those antibiotics. He said, they're not doing you any good.
So you're over 30 and you're still taking the antibiotics?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, the thing is, when you suffer from acne, you almost become psychologically dependent on these products, right? Because you think, if I stop, it's going to get even worse.
Right.
So you're just so scared to stop taking whatever you're taking. Logically, looking back now, they weren't working anyway. So what difference would it have made, right? But when you're in it, you can't see that for yourself.
Right.
But obviously, again, what I didn't realize back then was how devastating the antibiotics is for your gut microbiome, which is a whole nother podcast, by the way.
Yeah, which we're going to do.
Cool. That sounds great. So this guy says, you've got to stop taking the antibiotics. He said, you've got sensitivity to all these foods, and there's a whole load of them, but it was, wheat, dairy, I remember garden peas, black pepper, bell peppers, chili peppers. Something about my body doesn't like pepper. But he also said you've got quite a severe candida overgrowth, which is a common fungal infection.
Okay.
Which in itself can cause acne. So he said to me, look, these are all the foods you need to eliminate from your diet. And you need to eliminate these as well, because this is what fungus feed on. And I went home and I opened up my kitchen cupboards. I threw everything away. I went to the local supermarket, restocked on everything that I could eat. And 2 weeks later, my skin was clear. Clear. Wow.
All that suffering and pain, man. All the hotties you had to pass by because of your nutritional habits. Your poor mom, man. What did she say when you shared this with her? When the first time you pulled up and your mom saw you since you were 12 with a clear face, what did she say?
Do you know, it's interesting because my parents never spoke to me about it. Yes, my mum would occasionally take me to the doctor, but I think I was so embarrassed. I wasn't even willing to have a conversation with anyone about it.
Okay.
Yes, I would go to, and especially by the time I got to that age, it wasn't something that I got my mother involved in. That was only when I was probably up until I was about 16 or 17.
Right.
But I was always, on the odd occasion, if someone would come up to me and go, oh, that spot on your face, oh, it looks all, I would just get really embarrassed and I'd feel terrible. I wouldn't even want to have a discussion with someone about it. It was.
I remember in high school, and early adulthood, seeing a couple, like I went to an all boys school, and I just remember one of my friends has always had, this bad acne, and he was a wrestler. So we all thought, well, those dirty ass mats, and he's getting infected with that. And I know he had tried everything, and we weren't like best buds, so I don't know the intimate details of it. And then as young adults, he still had it. And I was like, well, it ain't the wrestling mats. So, man, knowledge is power. And so now you spend your time trying to help the world heal their gut, heal their skin, and get physically better. I mean, but let's go back to the question, man. Your mom, she didn't say anything. Did she say anything like, holy crap, we've been wasting all this time and money? Or she just said, I'm glad you're good, or just nothing?
Yeah, no, I don't remember anything really.
Okay.
I don't remember anything. I mean, all the time through my 20s and at my early 30s, I would go through good times and bad times. So I'd have good days and bad days.
Okay.
The good days were probably similar to what I look now, but probably not quite as good. But the bad days were really bad.
Okay. And would it change day to day, or would it change week to week? I mean,
yeah, it's not so much day to day. It's more,
right.
It's more kind of week to week. But
okay.
So my skin cleared really quickly, but then I would still have the occasional breakout for about 10 years, I would say, but maybe like 2 or 3 a year rather than 2 or 3 a month.
Exactly.
Right. And then for the last, 15 years or so, it's been pretty much completely clear. Now, what is quite interesting, a couple of weekends ago, my niece, it was at my niece's birthday. We went out for a family meal. I had an Indian meal, which, I don't have that often, but I love Indian food.
Right.
And the next day I met up with a friend I hadn't seen for ages, and we went out for lunch. And the next day I had a little breakout above my eyebrows.
Okay.
On both sides, right? Now, the reason I say that is because a lot of people, I've heard people say this to me, well, at your age, you wouldn't have acne now, right? Well, the truth is, if I didn't keep doing what I do, yes, I would still have acne.
Oh, absolutely. If I drink too much soda, or, usually it's pop for me. If I drink too much pop or get off my normal routine, even at my age, I'll break out somewhere. I mean, I'll get something somewhere, and I didn't know that, there was an age that you just didn't have anything. I've always had something at some point in time, and then I would just do get back on my cleaning, my face routine, and making sure I took care of it. How do you ever, I don't want to say approach people, but how do you approach people? I mean, in a real live, in a virtual world or social world, you say, hey, I can help people with their gut, help people with their skin, clean their skin. And so they come to you. Do you approach people and say, because I would think that if I suffered that life, 20, 25 years, or not 20 years, because you started when you were 13, but 10 to 20 years of this bad occasion, and you see another adult, their story. And I want to really talk to you about how you overcame the mental side of it, because you mentioned that a little bit. But do you approach people and go, I'm a specialist in this, and I can help you?
That's a really interesting question. And there's actually, so I train at a gym. It's just a few minutes walk from where I live. And there's another member that goes in there. She's got really bad acne. And there's a young lady on reception. She's probably in her late teens. She's got really bad acne. And I've toyed with the idea of approaching them, but it's very difficult in a place like that, because it's not like I can really ever get them on their own. Because you think if you said that and other people can overhear, it could be very embarrassing.
Of course.
Now, up until 3 months ago, before I published my book on how to overcome acne, for a lot of people to work with me one-to-one as a coach, as one of my other clients would say, I'm not the cheapest ticket in town, right? And I do find quite often, not always, I've had lawyers, 40-year-old lawyers with really bad acne, but quite often a lot of people with acne often don't have the kind of disposable income to spend on my services.
Right.
But now the book is out, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring out a book, because I wanted to make it affordable for everybody that's got acne.
So tell us about the book. What's the name of the book? So
the book is called Eliminating Adult Acne for Good.
Do you have a copy of it there?
I have a copy of it here.
Hold that shit up, man. Oh, wow. Eliminating Adult Acne for Good. He's holding the book up, by Leigh Brandon. Hey, you know what? This is a perfect time for me to throw up your website. It's for those listening, it's www.skinwebinar.com. Skinwebinar, just like it sounds.com. Check that out. So now that you have the book, now that you have the website, do you think that you would, like the receptionist, that you would go, hey, you might want to check out my website, and not say why, just check out my website, because you can't say check out my book. Oh, what's your book called? But check out my webinar or something, or maybe give me a call. I really would like to talk to you. I'm not hitting on you, but I really like to talk to you. I think I got something that you really would be interested in. That might be a good approach for you, bro, because what? You know how bad you suffered. And think if you could save that 16-year-old, let's assume she's 16, 17-year-old. What if you could save her 10 years of just friggin' agony of what that brings with it? You know, that would mean a lot to her.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the other thing as well, now, and to some degree, it's worse for females, what I'm about to explain. So I spent all that time buying creams and lotions and antibiotics that didn't work. And I think I've written it in the book, but I can't remember the exact amount of money that I spent over those 18 years on products that A, didn't work, and B, made me worse and made my overall health worse. So from a financial point of view, it's actually worthwhile investigating how to, heal your acne from the inside out and to do it in a natural way, which is what I teach.
Let me ask you a question, man. I now that I think about this, my eldest son used to break out pretty bad. And I know my wife at the time bought him the Proactive. It was really big, the Proactive. Did that stuff work or you still got to go inside out?
Yeah, I mean, again,
I'm not here to slam products, so I probably shouldn't have said that, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is that very rarely do skin products get rid of acne. Now, it might happen occasionally, but we're probably talking a very small proportion of the population.
Okay.
Now, I've done a lot of research into acne, so I've gone on PubMed and I've spent hundreds of hours scouring PubMed for research. And what is quite interesting is that a lot of the research is done on products, right? First of all, research is expensive. So who are going to spend money on research? Companies that are going to make money from the products that they're researching,
of course.
Right? And what's quite interesting is I'm yet to see a product that's been tested for longer than 12 weeks.
Really?
They're generally tested between 6 and 12 weeks. And it's interesting because almost all of these products, what they tend to say in the conclusion is that this product reduced the amount of acne lesions. They never say eliminated the acne lesions. They just say reduced.
Right.
Now, from my own experience, whenever I used a product, it tended to get a little bit better by about 6 weeks, and then it gradually got worse. So, it'd be quite interesting if they did a 10-year study on one of these products, because my guess would be, you might see some improvement for the first 6 weeks, but then you might see a worsening for the next 9+ years.
Just like your antibiotics. I mean, it worked for a few weeks and then it went back to normal.
Wow. Yeah, it went a lot worse, actually, a lot worse.
Wow. So what would you advise, and I know it's not your main focus, but given the experience that you have, what would you advise from a mental health standpoint of how to get through these challenges, and not just the acne, but just any challenge that we face? And obviously something that can be seen. My mother, Jesus, at the age of 60 something, 65, got vitiligo. And I don't know, do you know what vitiligo is?
Yeah.
For those of you that are listening,
condition.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know what vitiligo is, it's when you lose the pigmentation in your skin. And so as an African American, if you lose your pigment, all of a sudden you have these white splotches or colorless splotches, and when it's on your neck and your face, and and kids are kids, they have no clue, and they go, "Oh my God, mommy, look at her face. She's like a puzzle." And my mother had to deal with a lot of that. But anyway, the question is, what do you recommend for mental health when you're dealing with something that's so obvious?
Yes, that's a really good question, and I think there's two ways of looking at the same issue. Interestingly, vitiligo, of course, the most famous person that ever had that was Michael Jackson. Right.
Yep.
So the first thing I would say, when anything like a skin condition, the best way to overcome the mental issue is to deal with the skin condition. Right? Because if you deal with it, because what is causing the mental health issue, it's the skin issue.
Right.
But then what's causing the skin issue? Well, it's normally something internal in the body. Right? So the best way to deal with any health issue is to deal with the root cause.
Right.
Right. It's the skin that's causing the health problem, the mental health problem.
Right.
Now, obviously, there are situations where, you know, some of these conditions can take time to heal. Now, eczema is another one, right? That can be, you know, eczema. There's a lot of people get really, you know, almost suicidal with eczema. You know,
Really?
yeah. I mean, it can look awful. It can feel really debilitating as well. I mean, in terms of the way you look,
before you move
Sure.
on, is eczema a condition of diet as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I look at the skin, so the skin is almost a window of what's going on internally, particularly in your gut. So when you look at the skin is part of your immune system. It's a barrier, right? Your skin is a barrier to toxins, to pathogens. It's a semi-barrier to things like water, but obviously it allows water in as well. But the other barrier that we have is called the intestinal barrier, right? So we've got an immune system on our skin. We've got an immune system in our gut. Now, most of it is in the gut, because if you think about it, that's where we absorb our food into our bloodstream. So until it goes through the gut lining, technically the food isn't in our body. It's in a tube that's going through our body.
Right.
So the skin and the gut are kind of very similar in the way they work. They've both got a barrier. So there's also something called the gut-skin axis. And if you've got things like a leaky gut, so that's where the tight junctions in the intestinal wall widen and they allow things to get into the bloodstream that potentially shouldn't be in there. Again, it could be toxins, it could be pathogens, it could be undigested food particles, and they will kick off an immune response. Now, the redness of acne is the immune response. So when you have an immune response, it generally creates heat and redness. So that's the red that you get in acne is an immune response.
Okay.
So if you've got what's called a dysbiosis, which is an unfavorable balance of microbes in the gut, if you've got foods that you're sensitive to, which basically means your immune system will attack them when you eat them, those things either directly or indirectly can cause the skin to, or not cause the skin, but what the skin can do, the skin is also an organ of detoxification, right? Our skin is the biggest organ in the body.
Right.
So when you have a dysbiosis, when you've got pathogens in your gut, they release toxins. Now, if your other organs of detoxification, like, you know, you've got your lungs, you've got the liver, you've got the kidneys, etc., if they're overloaded, there's only one more place where the toxins can be released from the body, and that's through the skin.
Okay.
So, you know, it's quite a complex situation, the human body, right? So the way that you have to look at it is, okay, if there's an issue with the skin, what's going on the inside?
Gotcha.
What's the root cause? You know, there's a number of great analogies, but, you know, one is, you know, if you're driving along in your car and you have an engine warning light come on your dashboard, it's telling you there's something wrong with the engine, right? So, you know, you would take your car to the local mechanic, they would fix the engine, you start your car up again, there's no light on your dashboard, right? That's kind of how I see what I do. Right?
Okay.
But
so you get a warning. They get a warning that something's not right with the engine internally, your gut health, your diet, and they should then start to do some homework. And one of the first spots is to go to your website, skinwebinar.com, right? And from there, when we go there, what are we going to find? Was it an actual webinar, or is there information on the site? Okay.
So it's really, it's information about how I work with people with acne. Okay. So I run through the process that I use. So I call it the RAD method. It's kind of like a 4-stage process. So you replace the foods that we know cause acne. Okay.
Okay.
You so you replace the foods that cause acne. You then avoid foods that you're sensitive to. Then there's 2 Ds. The first D is to detox from the outside in, which means to remove toxins that are in your environment. Quite often it's what people are putting on their skin.
Okay.
But also it could be, the water that they're drinking, etc. And then the last part is to detox from the inside out. It does include things like balancing the gut microbiome and things like that as well. So it gives people a good idea of how I work.
Okay.
And there's also the opportunity, if people want to speak to me one-to-one, I'll give people my time, an hour of my time complimentary if they want to talk more about, how I can possibly help them.
Okay.
Now for most, for a lot of people, if they want a deeper dive, jump on Amazon or your other favorite bookstore and just go and buy my book, because all the information's in there that you'll need. The only people I would say that probably won't do well with my book are people that are not so self-motivating, people that need someone there for accountability. Right? Someone is going to give them be able to kick up the backside, as we would say, this side of the pond.
Excellent.
Right.
No, that's perfect, man. I think that I really believe that the more people that know about the opportunity to rid themselves of something that has been such a stressor in their lives, that's been so frustrating, and to be able to take some action. Do you talk about the elimination diet in your book, or is that something you talk about in person?
Yeah. So I mean, the biggest chapter in the book is on diet. Okay. And what I call the acne elimination diet is actually a number of different factors that I've put together, because I come from a lot of different angles nutritionally. Right. And the other thing that's really important for people to understand is that everyone's different.
Yep. Well, that's the 24K life code, right? My whole book is about identifying what makes you tick. And this is exactly one of the ways that we all need to, and not even from not only from an external, objection, right? Not from acne, not from eczema or some other skin condition, but just how should you eat for energy for you to operate at your optimal level, So I love it. So my last question is for you to give me just a quick preview so I'm going to have you back and we're going to talk about gut health. Tell me what we're going to talk about. What do you really need people to know about gut health? And I know it's an offshoot of what we've been talking about, but I want to do another segment with you just on gut health. And I want to do a preview. Just give me your two best lines on gut health.
Wow. First of all, it's an absolutely huge subject, and there's so much research being carried out in the last 10, 20 years. We've learned a hell of a lot, but there's still so much we don't know. But in a nutshell, there are billions of microbes that reside within our gut, and they have many, many different functions in the human body, all absolutely essential to human life. Now, the DNA of a human being is relatively short compared to lots of other animals that are much smaller than us. And the reason that is because the microbes in our gut do a lot of things for us. So we don't need a long strand of DNA. So, we've got bacteria in our gut. We've got parasites or worms, potentially viruses, fungi. They all live in a community, right? But it's getting the balance right. Now, whether it's the skin, there's so many things that the gut can affect. There's something called the gut-brain axis. We're starting to learn more and more about something called the vagus nerve and how what's going in your gut affects your mental health. It can also cause neurodegenerative diseases, things like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, dementia. There's the gut-vaginal axis as well. So, it's a really, really complex subject, but it's from a physical point of view, in my opinion, it's the most important thing for human health.
Okay.
I think the mind is more important, but from a physical point of view, your gut is the most important thing.
All right. Well, that's what we're going to talk about next time. We're going to talk
Cool.
about the second most important thing for you and I and our communities to be healthy. So thank you so much, Leigh. We're going to have you back. I'm going to promote the hell out of this because people that suffer unnecessarily, I will say, need to know about you. They need to know about your book. They need to hear your story, and they need to understand that they can overcome as well. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Derick.
All right. I'll be right back. All right, everybody. You know what? He tapped into the code. You need to understand your personal code, what will happen for you, to you, and as a result, how you can eliminate unnecessary stress, strain, and concerns and worry, objections, opportunities, all of this just because of a possible skin issue. I remember meeting a guy that had, I think it was called psoriasis, this big rash on your arm or something. And, you just look at people differently. And, luckily he was a neighbor and I got to know him and I got to understand it wasn't contagious and, all the naive things that go with that. But man, he covered it up and just lived this life that was very, very difficult. So having a resource like Leigh is critical, and knowing that you can investigate and that someone else has done the research, they've done the homework, they've compiled the cliff notes, and they are going to present you with a book that can change your life. You might pay $20 for it or $30 for it or $50 for it, whatever it happens to be. But let's be honest, it's worth thousands of dollars for your mental health, for your physical health, and for your financial health. I'm Derick Gant. I want you to be your best, bring your best, leave nothing to chance. If you are looking to figure out how to level off your life, you don't know where to start, and you know that you can be better, you're living an average life, hey, grab a copy of the 24K Life Code. We talk about your health, wealth, happiness. We talk about creating habits. We don't talk about how somebody else became successful. We talk about what are the habits that successful people take, own, and deliver on a daily basis. Be amazing and have an incredible week. Thanks so much.